Welcome to the Digital Triggers podcast, where we try to bring you weekly ammunition that you can use in your business. I'm your host, Sweeney, and today we bring on Ben Pate. And the focus of this weekly ammunition is going to be AdWords. Now, Ben has managed over $10 million in Google AdWords spend. So we brought him on to kind of tell us the best beginner practices and how to get started with Google AdWords, as well as he shared with us his 2 golden rules. Listen up and hear what Ben has to say.
Starting small and only building with what you can kind of handle. So a big mistake that a lot of people make is they get in there with the keyword planner, they add in all these keywords, and maybe they only create one ad, and there's just too much going on. They're too new, and really what they need to do is have fewer keywords, have more ad groups. Okay, so more ad groups is ad groups is where the keywords and the ads reside. And so a big mistake that we see a lot of people make is they have one campaign, one ad group, and a bunch of keywords. Okay, so that means all those keywords are being served up. Those ads are being served up by many different keywords. Okay. And so you want it to be very tailored, very specific. So you could have one campaign, but generally the campaigns mimic the categories on the website. Okay? So these could be like different sections of the website. So maybe let's say if it's real estate, where commercial real estate could be one campaign, residential could be another, land could be another campaign, leases or rentals could be another campaign. Right, those would generally be maybe like different categories. Also, too, at the campaign level is where you set the geolocation. So, am I advertising to the entire United States, or am I advertising just to Florida? So, so that's something too. So, you want to have roughly 5 to 10 keywords per ad group, and let's say 5 to 10 ad groups per campaign. So, for example, if like I just had a meeting right before you left. This guy runs a kids summer camp in Jupiter, and he asked me, he's like, "Oh, we're basically turning on a campaign that we had ran in the past." So he had asked me, he's like, "Oh, are we doing like outdoor and summer camp and kids camp and all these different kind of like little play on words?" Right, it's all kind of the similar type of meaning. I mean, it shows a little bit different intent, right? Mm-hmm. Where kids summer camp is pretty broad, right? We don't know, like, well, what kind of summer camp are they looking for? Is it a equestrian summer camp? Is it an adventure summer camp? Is it a science summer camp? And so these are the perfect examples of different ad groups. Right, so we have an ad group for kids summer camp, equestrian summer camp, adventure summer camp, snorkel camp. That's actually what it is. It's a snorkeling camp. Any sort of like water-related camp, and you basically kind of go from broad to more specific, and that happens at the ad group level. And what that does is that allows you to have a targeted keyword and a targeted ad, for that combination, right? So that if the keyword is adventure summer camp, that our ad resembles that. So our ad is adventure summer camp, and because it's at the ad group level that the keyword and the ad reside, that you have to have, many different ad groups. If you kind of think of it like a tree, think of like the trunk as the campaign, and then think about the branches as ad groups, and then the leaves could be like keywords and ads. Okay, so if you had a tree with a trunk, with one offshoot, right, that would look really weird. Yeah. So you want, the trunk is the campaign, the branches coming off are the ad groups, the leaves would be all the keywords and ads that you need to have. It needs to kind of look like that in order to be successful. And what that will do primarily is that not only is it going to make it more relevant, but then it's also going to increase your click-through rate. And click-through rate is a big piece of the pie when it comes to Google's secret sauce, which is essentially quality score. And I don't want to talk about, getting to the technical of quality score too much, but essentially it's Google's secret sauce. The higher your quality score, the lower your cost per click is going to be in a higher position. So it's the higher quality score that allows you to pay less per click than your competitor when you're in the number 1 position and your competitor is in the number 3 position. The main piece of that is click-through rate. So if you have a higher click-through rate than your competitor, then more than likely then your quality score is going to be higher. Google is going to give you somewhat preferential treatment. The reason for that is that I have 2 golden rules for Google AdWords, right? So the first golden rule is whatever makes Google the most money, okay, wins. And by that I mean like, with the ads and your competitors, right? It's an auction model. And so naturally they want to make the most from their auction, right? So whatever makes Google the most money, and then whatever provides the best user experience. And the reason why number 2 is really important, I mean, you see a lot of talk about Google being very focused on the users, right? And what's really interesting is that Google has a different mission statement than pretty much any other website out there, okay? So every other website out there, you want people to stick on your website, right? You want people to be on your website for a very long time. Google is the opposite. They want people to be on their website for a very short period of time, okay? And when somebody, which is essentially they click through to, whether it's an organic listing or a paid listing, they click through to another website. Well, then what Google wants to see is that that person stays on your website. They view that as, okay, they like this. Because when somebody clicks on your website and they click the back button, that's called a bounce. And Google can see that oh, they just came back, they went to this website and they just came back in 1 second. That, okay, something must not have been in sync. The website didn't work. It wasn't what they expected. It provided a bad user experience. And so the reason that that's number 2 is that will indirectly affect the number 1 golden rule, is whichever makes Google the most money, because when people go to Google, if they're not getting the answers that they feel are appropriate for what they're searching for, then they're not going to come back to Google. They're going to go somewhere else. So those are the 2 golden rules. The click-through rate's very important. Also, too, making sure that the match types of the keywords are very important. A lot of people, they'll just type in the keyword just on its own, and that would be considered a broad match keyword. And so Google will match anything that it thinks is relevant. So for quick example on that, we were doing a lot of work in the flood restoration industry, okay? And so one of the keywords is water damage. Well, what we quickly found was that a lot of people were searching on iPhone water damage.
That's
and cell phone water
damage.
damage.
My mind too. It's funny.
Yeah. Where like people are looking for like that rice trick, right? Yeah. So, so the way that you combat those is either with exact match keywords, where only what you type in, what you do is you put brackets around the keyword. If you use exact match, then you don't need negative match. But the way to combat that is with negative match keywords. And so basically what you want to do is let's say you had a broad match for water damage. It's gonna show your ad for anything it thinks relevant. So iPhone water damage, they show your ad. Well, what you do is you go in there and you run a search term report, and you can see the exact keywords that people searched that generated impressions for your ads. You go in there and you look and you see iPhone. You then add iPhone as a negative keyword, which is as simple as just putting a minus sign in front of the keyword. So minus sign iPhone, no spaces, and that will do a negative match keyword. So you got to watch out for that stuff. So when you first launch a campaign,
rate and your cost and everything.
Yep, exactly. So The main thing there is that, when you get set up, right, you got to have the measuring in place, right, in terms of being set up for success. So what does that mean in terms of Google AdWords? That means phone call tracking, okay? So how many phone calls are being generated from these ads that you're showing? Then you've got AdWords conversion tracking, okay? So if you have a form submission or if it's an e-commerce site or whatever, that when somebody places a sale, fills out an opt-in form, whatever the case may be, that they go to a thank you page or a confirmation page, and that you have that AdWords conversion tracking code on that page. Okay? To take that to the next level, you can then even track the value of that action, right? Because all actions aren't necessarily created equal. So a phone call could be worth $10 to me, where somebody filling out a form on the website could be worth $20, right? Or vice versa, right? So Google has an area for the value for those actions. So the first thing is the measuring, right? Getting the measuring set up, AdWords conversion tracking, phone call tracking, going into Google Analytics, linking the Google Analytics account with the Google AdWords account, and then also setting up goals in Google Analytics so you can see that information in there as well. The second thing is analyzing. So you launch a campaign. I talked about kind of like building the campaign, right, that it needs to resemble a tree. But in terms of then the next part is then analyzing and optimizing.
I'm hoping you learned a bit about Google AdWords and probably paid traffic in general. Now, if you want to hear the full chat with Ben where he takes us through clients and contracts, and for example, the one contract mistake that cost him 6 figures, plus how you can go about approaching and getting clients to do Google AdWords for, head on over to members.digitaltriggers.io, and that is where you can check out the full interview that I did with Ben. It's a pretty long one, but a really good one. Now, as always, if you are listening to this on your phone, on your iPhone, or Stitcher, please leave us a review or rating, and subscribing really helps us out and helps the podcast grow. If you're on YouTube, I'd love for you to leave a comment, maybe if you have any questions for Ben or suggestions or ideas for us to have on guest-wise. Either way, we appreciate you, we love you for listening, and I hope to see you again in the next podcast.